this is my Triumph Herald 1360, and as you've just seen, a few weeks ago someone ran into the back of it, which is obviously quite upsetting. This was my first car. I've had it for nearly 17 years. If you've been following along with the channel, you've seen I've done a lot of work on it recently, and that actually extends back before I started making YouTube videos. That was a whole load of work on the back end, then a whole load of work on the front end and the engine. And I just got it through 500 miles, just got it run in, and then it got bashed. Now, I was rather worried that the insurance were not going to want to repair it, because the damage is relatively extensive and it's touching panels that you can't get good copies of for Heralds. Fortunately though, that's not the case. The repairs have been approved and it's going to be done by somebody who's, I know is going to do a fantastic job. Now the problem is, there's rust in the rear end. A little bit, but enough that you don't really want to put paint over the top of it. Now obviously, and this is fair enough, insurance companies are not going to want to pay for that to be done. And I can do it myself, and I don't want to push more work on the guy who's doing the repairs, because he's got plenty on. So what we've got to do now, strip out the back end and get going on some of these little rust repairs. So when the accident damage is repaired, it's all nice and ready to paint. Well, you see, I've been tearing stuff apart. Now, this is the kind of the worst area, or the area where I knew there was rot that needed dealing with. It's always interesting to see. This is part of the accident damage. Bump that out behind the light. The poor rear valance. Anyway, I got the fuel drained, so next big thing is to get the tank out. So that's the driver's side of the car done. Can't do much on the other side yet though, because the fuel tank's still in. So that's what I got to get out. And they're a bit of a pain because they've got to get the drain plug through and the filler deck through. Neither of those move. So we'll see how we go. And take the boot stay off. The boot wants to fall on your head too. Fortunately, there's an answer to that. They're going to come out. Now you see the problem. It's the filler neck underneath. Sorry, filler neck here, then underneath the drain plug. Both of them have passed through the holes. I think what I did last time was try and remove this rubber to let the filler neck move a bit more easily. So the neck's just popped through the wing. I've got the grommet out. There we go, it did come out in the end. I didn't manage to drain it completely, so what I did was just run off the fuel supply, let it siphon down out the front. And it's still here sloshing though, so I'm going to have to do a bit of an extra drain. For you, those of you interested, this is the larger style late fuel tank. So the last of the 1360s came with this bigger, and the Vitesses too, came with a bigger fuel tank. I'm pretty sure this is the one that came with the car, because it's quite a late 1360. Anyway, I shall get fuel drained and then get the rest of this off. Well, there, that is everything out, and it's looking better now. So getting rid of the big wobbly rear valance has made it look a little bit less horrific. When we say we got bend up to the rear of the boot floor, but that's not a. That should just be a case of pulling it down, I think. Did hit the wheel well, just. There's a bit of a dent. I hadn't spotted a tiny little dent there. Even here it's difficult to see that there might be. You can see I put a patch in there and I remember it being flat, I think. So if we hit in here. Anyway, I should have the exception that reflectors will come out. Pain. So what I need to worry about is do these rust repairs. So you can see there's a little bit in here as well, so that's going to turn out bigger than that. But I remember this wing, you know, it's been starting to go for some time. So getting all this cleaned away, both sides of this and both sides of that side. But they're not huge repairs though, are they? Same here, there's bubbling on this arch, but you know, we'll see how solid this bit of metal is. Well, that bit isn't it? Okay, well. And there's little bits like that, you know, it just needs cleaning back, and maybe we need to, you know, put a new lip on. Just all along this arch, and you can see daylight through there. There's a couple of little holes. That was where I worked most recently. It's about 2 years old, and I deliberately didn't do that last bit in the corner because I would have had to touch the outer body. So I left it till now. There's also plenty of under-sealed scrap out there, so I won't set anything on fire. But yeah, I suppose
I want to clean in these corners as well and look what they're like. Anyway, time for a weekend of welding, I think. So there's quite a bit more filler in those wings than I was expecting. Bit of accident damage on the passenger side, which had just been filled over. So I have to get the dent puller on that. Otherwise, everything's looking better than I thought, which is, you know, a surprise. The driver's side rear wing is the worst, or kind of on the inner edge next to the boot. And it was the passenger side that I thought was really going to be the problematic one. But this, the driver's side just had older rust that had been filled over at some point. So there you go. So I feel like this bit is probably the thing I'm going to tackle first, and I'm feeling like I might make most of this panel because it's going to be easier to kind of make some joins on the boot lip rather than try and put a weld seam down the middle of there and grind it. And if I avoid the curve, which we'll see. Well, also avoiding the curve is going to avoid touching the where it's spot welded to the reinforcement plate at the back there, which the light is probably not going to let you see. Anyway, I'll check the other side because it looks on this side like this has got a slight curve to it. But I think it's probably supposed to be straight, and that's probably more due to it rotting. And also, fully taking this panel off will make it easier to repair this bit, which again I think is going to have to be more or less all of that. But it's straight bits with bends, so it's not nothing too horrendous. And then we've got this bit out here, which I think is probably going to have to be a square rectangle. A little bit of curve to preserve on the wing too. Anyway, first job, get rid of some of this dust. So yeah, instead of tidying up, I decided it was the time to make more mess, because I'm already covered in muck. So I've gone around the edge of this lip. There's actually holes here, and these are the most awkward place because they're right on. It means I'm going to have to take the back bit of webbing off of the hood, which is annoying. But that's going to need. It's very, very pitted, and it's gone through there. It's going to need a patch. And then I took the boot lid off to look in these corners, and they're not as bad as they looked actually. Obviously there's a hole, but there's just that little one hole. This one seems to be surface rusty only. So hopefully a bit of rust remover will do for that. And then there's all this around the rear deck, which was there, and I think I mentioned I've been over it once. But better rust treatment, I think. I've got a rust remover now, which is pretty good. So go over all of those. Yeah, that's quite holy too, isn't it? Or anyway, what to do now? Where to start? Still feels like these wings are the biggest things. If I go a bit further in than I really wanted to, back of the light unit's about there, so that would mean I had access to the back of the weld to try and plan shit if needs be. You can always start off, make that shape, and then make it bigger. Oh, well, yeah, make it too big. And then we can choose which to cut. Okay, so out of all the repairs that need doing, this is probably going to be the hardest to get nice, because it's on an outside body panel, and even though it looks straight, but it has a tiny curve to it. And that's actually, I don't know about this area, but it's one of the problems with repro Herald wings nowadays, is that because they curve that way and all over, the modern pressings don't have all of that curvature. Anyway, the damage is in the height a bit, or the curvy a bit. So I'm going to start off and make a little bit of a sweep to go over here. The inside's similarly curved, basically the whole light unit tapers in. So I'm going to make a pattern off this, and then have a check on the other side, and well, the other side of this light unit and the other side of the car, and see if it all matches up. And then hopefully, because this is such a slight curve, then hopefully, because this curve is so slight, it'll just be a case of making this bend. So we've got the lip, and then we should just be able to form it by hand, hopefully, because the metal that's going to need to shrink and stretch slightly is all going to be along this tiny fold. So that looks good for that side, and it's quite handy that it's been such a bright day. From behind I can see a tiny bit of light, but you know, it's corrugated cardboard, so. Okay, and that is the same profile, which you'd hope it would. And the passenger side matches as well, which is a relief. So that tells us there's been no distortion because of the accident to this panel. But they all came out of the factory more or less symmetrical, which you'd hope for, but you never know. So I'm just going to make the inside, which is this is not quite flat, but then there's a lot of rust. The other side feels flat, and the other side is also less damaged from rust. So I mean flat, like that way, because there's definitely dents in here. Anyway, so we can just make the inverse. So the inside fits nicely pretty much everywhere except here. There's a little bit extra. So I think that's telling me this is slightly wrong, and it feels distorted too, and labelled too, because I've got a jiffy bag somewhere full of bits of Herald profile in case they ever come in handy again. But I really don't intend on doing another Herald or Vitesse. So I finally got here. I had to do a whole load of tidying up before I could actually start doing proper metal work. Got to get all the electroplating kit put away. To avoid filling it with dust of various sorts. Anyway, let's get something cut. Right, so my camera battery died, and so I don't know what's missing. Mostly me hitting this with a hammer and thinking it's probably time to get a bead roller. But I've got that bend and that profile and what's looking like a good shape. It's a little bit too bent, so I've got to bend back and then start to manipulate it so it'll take the right curve. So you see that shape is very, very small, so hopefully it's just going to be a case of this sort of thing. I went too far. Yeah, like that. I'll trim that edge off so we'd offer it up to the car properly. So much trimming later. So you've got that subtle curve. So now, with that sitting there, I want to trim it down so we're just taking out the bottom bit. And then we can see what the inside looks from the inside of the inside. You know what I mean? And there's not all that much wrong with the inner piece, which is nice. And you can even see that there's bare metal there. I'll best put a mask on and tack that with a wire brush. So this is going to be the repair for the inner section, and it just needs a tiny, tiny lip on it. So I'm going to try and do that just over the edge of the bench. Make it a bit bigger than it really needs to be to start with. But there's enough there to do what we need to do, I think. There we go. Start trimming on the car. So we're going to have to see how some of the lighting comes out on this footage because it's very bright outside. It's not too dark in the garage, but the contrast is messing with the camera. Anyway, what I'm going to do is just cut off a little bit of the lip. And then I'll fit that exactly where it will go in terms of lining up with the edge. And then mark and cut. And it's come through okay on the other side, which is nice because this needs to be quite smooth, and well, we can't leave any weld overhanging in here because otherwise the light's not going to fit. And where's my sweep? It's like that's bulging in a bit. It seems to be here though, that's the problem. Get this welded and then I might hammer that around a bit. Okay, so I am going to get that ground down, and I'll look at this little, it's quite hot, funnily. There's a little tweak here, which doesn't seem to be in the wing, also hot. And would be covered up by the trim anyway, but let's try and sort it. But I'm not going to need to go too excessive on here because it's all going to be not touching, so it's all fine. Okay, if that's going to focus, maybe not. Anyway, this is ground down. And I've not done much on the outside because don't need to. That wing's going to bow around it, and I've gone in and scraped away a bit of the sound deadening because that catches fire very easily when we weld the outer. And I've got a light, and there's plenty of room for it. Yep. So there's plenty of room there. Cool, right. Onto this bit then. Okay, so this is ready to start fitting in. Patch gone, there you are. So it feels like if the top cut is butted up, that feels like the best fit against the wing. So I think I will then just trim the bottom of the patch piece. So it's feeling like there we're going to be able to meet up nicely along this edge of the wing. That's in. Need a little bit of a diagonal trim there. as easy just to make that cut. Well, that is fitting quite nicely, and those are going to line up. It's going to need a bit of manipulation on the car, I think, but that's all going to line up quite well. So I'm going to get some holes punched on plug weld to here, clean all that up, and get a bit of paint on. And when that's dry, get it welded in. Okay, so it's primed, and the paint's had a bit of time to dry, so let's get this fitted in. Okay, that's a start. That corner is nice, so let's get a tack in there. So I don't know where we got to. I had a full SD card and battery fail, so we'll see how much footage it actually is. Anyway, I've got this tacked in, and I feel like the match-up of the panels is pretty good. But what I'm going to do now is take the tops off all these welds and see how it lines up without them there, and then proceed to very, very, very slowly weld it in. Definitely a low in there, which I'm trying to get a dolly behind, but not a great deal of success. Honestly, I can't feel much difference in any of those. They look lower. I can feel the welds. I can't feel much back and forth, even with the glove off. I think the amount of filler in this panel is tricking me, because that feels cold. Well, it would do, because it's insulated. So let that cool down a bit. So I've been letting this, I've been blowing it with air when I've been welding, but I've been letting it sit for a few minutes until it's, you know, cold enough that I can touch, just to make sure we're not putting a lot of heat into this panel, especially as this has been fooling me, because the fillers obviously, you know, there's a fairly thick, well, not as thick as it comes, but there's a fair bit on there, and that means it doesn't feel as hot as the metal will be. Right, that's the first pass, all welded. Let's get it ground and see how well it's come out. Somewhat annoyingly, the whole thing has ended up a little bit low. So it's not quite got the curve it should have. Trying to shove this dolly behind it, get it or out of it. It's good there. Made it quite bad there though. Okay, I think I'm at the point now where I should stop, because I don't think I'm making it any better, and I'm just risking making it worse. Okay, so that wing repair is done. It's not 100% the right shape. You know, judging by the damage to this wing, it's going to need some extra manipulation. It's probably going to have as much filler on as I just found in it. So, yeah. Anyway, I feel I've learned a few more things. So, I don't think I'm going to end this video. There's still plenty to do, little bits, but a lot of them. There's obviously the biggest remaining thing is the other side of this, like, housing thing, which is going to be very similar, but so either more awkward, but also more hidden. So that's probably what I'll tackle next, and then everything else becomes very, very small patches. So all that remains is to say thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, thanks for subscribing, and you know, if you have got this far and you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. You know, it encourages me to keep doing this sort of thing if you want to watch it, and see you next time.